Hey guys, it's Danny. Today I thought about taking you along with me during a maintenance process that I actually do regularly, and this is checking up my orchids. Now, yes, typically I come in the grow space, I look at the orchids, give them all a glance every single day, but from time to time it is actually a good idea to pick them up, look at them, look at the root system, see how everything is doing. In this way, I make sure that I am on top of whatever pest infestation or disease or rotting or anything that could actually happen in a grow space. Because as much as we don't really realize this, pests, ailments, they're part of nature. They're absolutely natural and very, very normal to have. The only difference is this is not nature. We don't want any natural selection here. So we're hoping that we can keep everybody alive, which is not always the case, but for the main part, we do have a much higher survivability rate in our growing spaces. And regular orchid checkup makes sure that we spot everything in time to actually treat it. So today we're gonna do that for my Phalaenopsis collection. Well, the Mini Phalaenopsis and the special ones. And we are also going to change this beautiful diversity shelf here, which has been a sort of place where I keep all of the new orchids, all of the sickly orchids, stuff that I actually needed to keep an eye on. The problem is, I do keep an eye on everybody, no matter where they are, and when somebody comes into my grow room, the first thing they see is not this. It's the African violet corner, because they're always in bloom. And I don't blame them, I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous, but I'm Miss Orchid Girl, not Miss African Violet Girl. Now, my blooming orchids currently are the Cattleyas, and they're way out in the back, and you cannot see them because of the birds and the vandas. So I thought, what better orchids to display here than the Phalaenopsis orchid, which is in bloom for so long. I also have summer bloomers, spring bloomers, autumn bloomers, I have all sorts of bloomers. So this shelf will forever be in bloom with beautiful stuff. So because this week I was actually cleaning up the greenhouse anyway, and I've done quite a few changes, which you will see in a tour, I decided what better moment to check up on the Phalaenopsis and also check their location than now, when I can still make a mess. I have my vacuum near and I am well equipped mentally and physically to clean. So as you might know, my Phalaenopsis currently reside here. This is, well, the back of the grow room. Nobody sees them here. And the thing is, they will all be in bloom very, very soon. You can see the flower spikes are quite tall at this point. So what I will do is a bit of a swap. I'm going to take all of the orchids that you saw on the shelves and put them here, because for the main part, there's enough light for what I have in that shelf. You might have seen the seedling vandas. Those will get changed to a sunny location, but for the main part, I think I can do a swap. It's okay if I keep a few of the other orchids on that shelf as well, but I think I want to make my main shelf Phalaenopsis based, because spoilers, I think maybe there's a chance that this year I will focus on more polychylus, hybrids, summer bloomers, orchids deluxe things. So I have a funny feeling that I will go more towards that realm, and they are all so beautiful that I do think I want to display them there. For now, this is the collection. Of course, I have more Phals, but they're not here because their spikes are way taller than this. But I think for the mini Phals, which I adore, and for the summer bloomer Phals, I do have enough space. First of all, I need to clear up the other shelf, so let's get to that first. First, let's start with what I already have on the shelf. This is Phalaenopsis Mituo King. This is one that I received, that I received recently, and it started to elongate its flower spike and produce some more buds, which is absolutely fantastic. Problem is, I don't like where this flower spike is going, so I will stake it. Alright, so that is a little better. I might add another clip here at some point, but I'll do it after I'm done. Next to it, we have the variegated Phalaenopsis immobilis. We know this one for quite a lot of time now, but what I wanted to show you, look, we have a variegated root. This orchid can actually produce normal roots and very, very red roots, and I think that is absolutely gorgeous. Here in the front we have the Phalaenopsis little joy, or little ear. It is not growing Somebody told me that theirs is just as fussy. It just doesn't grow all that fast. It might just be a very finicky hybrid, or maybe a little bit of incompatible hybrid with all of its genes. Here we have the Phalaenopsis schilleriana crossed with Stuartiana. She's a pretty girl. Here's another new one, Friday Princess, already starting to grow, or not. Nope, not starting to grow. I just got this one in December, I think. Phalaenopsis Pallas Reef. It has a tiny little flower spike here, very exciting. In the back, we have Bashi Red Sun. This one, I think it was in my surprise box from Orchids Deluxe. She's a really, really fragrant orchid. And she didn't have to, oh no, she is growing roots. But yeah, I only have her for a month or so. Here's something super interesting, Phalaenopsis Yaphone Green Batman. This one came with flower spikes and with flowers in the same box, and it's continuing its growth on the flower spike, but do you see what's happening here? The flower spike is branching, but not where it should branch. Typically, branches appear from the nodes well below where the flowers start to grow. This one is producing a branch where a bud should be. And this is pretty unheard of. Now, I have enough years of experience to know that orchids are always surprising, but if you would ask me before today if this is even possible, I would have told you no. But there we go. Today I will tell you, yes, it is. Highly, highly unlikely, but possible. I'm gonna have to do something about the flower spike because it is too tall. I'll show you at the end of the video. Here's a little update on my Phalaenopsis Stuartiana Yellow Joy. I have this one for a year now, ordered it from Orchids Deluxe, and here we go, it has a flower spike this year. And in the back there, we have the Phalaenopsis schilleriana that I received from one of you guys, and she's doing great. If you remember with this one, I lost the mother plant. This is a basil keiki that I left on the initial stem, which is somewhere below here, and it has a flower spike this year for me as well. It's still really tiny. This orchid is supposed to be quite big, but yeah, this is a keiki. It's kind of young. And I was considering not letting this one be here, but she is a Phalaenopsis hybrid, if you will. This is Sideria japonica crossed with Vendopsis parrishi. Siderias have been reclassified to Phalaenopsis. I personally don't enjoy it, but at the same time, I don't matter. So I'm just going to let it be here because this one blooms at the same time as all of my other Phals. So when I check my orchids, what I do pretty much is check the foliage, look at the root system, and see if everything is okay. So I'll go ahead and do that, and we're gonna take a look at them when they're on the shelf. So during this process, I am also removing any dried leaf and also any dried flower spike, which I of course missed. I decided to put on some gloves because some of them are a little moist. I watered them about 5 days ago. And if you have dry skin, water on your hands is now your best friend. So this is Phalaenopsis Tyne Sheen Fly Eagle, one of my favorite Phalaenopsis. She's a polychilous hybrid, and P.S. I'll link you down below to an American Orchid Society article on the subgroups or subgenera of Phalaenopsis, so you know more about it. And this is super interesting. I had this flower spike bloom last year together with another one which I just cut. This one started to grow again, and I think it will prepare some buds, and also I see 2 more flower spikes being produced, which is great. And I was actually hoping to get more flower spikes on this orchid because she's a Tetraspis hybrid. But orchids work in mysterious ways. What can I say? Now, I do have some Phals which are not necessarily polychilous or mini Phals or anything necessarily special, but they have beautiful flowers, and also the flower spikes are not super tall. And one of them is the Phalaenopsis Pink Flamingo. This is a commercial name. I don't know the actual name. It has that beautiful magenta colored flower, very tiny flower actually, but it's very branchiful. So I think it fits perfectly on this shelf. And yeah, the orchid looks great. And it's the case with the Leopard Prince as well. This one has bigger flowers, but flower spike is not very tall. This is an orchid which took a little bit of time to recover, but she's doing better now. Now, do you remember that last year I had a mislabeled orchid from Orchid Garden no surprise there. That was supposed to be a beautiful yellow with a slightly wider center, and what I got was something else. Well, looky here, I have the Sweet Girl, Shiny Girl once again, but this time from Orchids Deluxe. Fingers crossed, it's not the same thing. And speaking about that one, which is around here, I didn't get to it, that one will be put in the giveaway because it's not my thing. I'm not a super huge fan of the Harlequins on that yellow-greeny background. It's just not my color palette. And it's a beautiful orchid, it deserves to be with somebody who loves her. Until then though, I really hope this is the Shiny Girl. Alrighty, so I'm kind of done, but let me show you what I'm gonna do about this flower spike because I really want this orchid to sit here. Have you ever seen those Phalaenopsis orchids in flower shops which are pinned to an arching flower stake? Well, I don't have that stake, but I can make one. I have these wire stakes from Repot Me. They sent them to me last year and I really, really love them, but I'm gonna mess one up. So what I will do is bend one of these stakes to the shape that I want this flower spike to have, and then I will look in the pot and see where I don't have roots, insert the stake, and then pin the flower spike to the shape of the stake, and voila, we have a fake cascade. For good measure, I will apply another clip here. And now I can actually see the flowers. They will not touch the LED panel. This guy right here is not so tall. Let's remove this dried flower, already looking better. So with this one, I don't think I want to do anything. I'm gonna let it be, but there we go. I'm hoping I can straighten the stake back up when I'm done with it. Alrighty, I'm done. I'll give you a general look. I thought things would look a little bit neater and tidier than they do, but yeah, Phalaenopsis are not known to be very tidy plants. So I don't know what I was expecting, but they will look really, really pretty when they will be in bloom. Some of these mini Phals have already started to open, so we're gonna have a super cute show when they're all in full bloom, probably in February or March. This year, my summer was super, super extended, so everybody spiked kinda late, but yeah, that's this climate. For the main part, everybody was okay. Everybody passed the inspection, except this one, which seems to have a few discoloration marks on one of its leaves. It's not the newest leaf, but this one is the newest one, and the orchid herself looks pretty good. So I'm not entirely sure what this is. Might be something, might be nothing. We're gonna see. Other than that, everybody seems to be pretty okay. No super incredible surprises, but I did want to show you something. Another very interesting discovery is on my DTPS Sogo Vivian, the variegated form. I thought it was producing a flower spike, and I think you can see it right here. Well, now that I look at it, I'm not entirely sure if it's a flower spike or a little keiki. Because can you see that it has a little bit of a sheath like a leaf formation and there is something inside? Well, this can end up being a flower spike or a keiki. At this point, I don't think it knows either, but yeah, I found it interesting. And of course, this formation is a little bit variegated as well. I'm a big fan of variegated orchids generally, and everything that has to do with contrast, I discovered. 'Tis the next day, my friends. I had to take a break because it was getting late. But this morning, I actually staked my little flower spikes in an attempt to make everything look a little bit more tidy. And I believe it looks a little bit better. Let me get you in closer. So the thing with mini Phals is that they have very flexible flower spikes, unlike the standard Phalaenopsis. So even if they're grown, you can actually shape them to some extent. I'm not gonna try to bend them more than I should, but I can straighten them a little bit more and give them that nice cascading-like effect. So that's what I did with most of them, even with the species, but of course with the summer bloomers, which have tinier flower spikes, there was no need to do that. I'm not bothered by these flower spikes. Now, one thing that actually crossed my mind while I was snoozing on the couch last night was to actually try out a little experiment. It's not an experiment. Try out a little setup with the pot that I had hanging around in the greenhouse. Now, you guys might know that I am a fan of the Lechuza pots, and I did use the Mini Deltini a long time ago with orchids, with an oncidium type. Everything went super great. I prefer to grow my African violets in the Lechuza pots because they already come with a pre-made pot inside. And well, this pot is suited for some orchids, but not too many. It's a little bit tight. There isn't enough ventilation and aeration for my taste. So the orchids that we can put in the setup are limited, maybe oncidiums and other very, very water-loving orchids that can do well in full sphagnum moss. And what I had in this pot was the Hawaiiara Lava Burst, and she did absolutely fantastic. But if I would put a Cattleya, I'm not sure if the outcome would be the same. Anyway, there are some limitations with the Mini Little Teeny. I still love it, I just prefer to use it with African violets. Now this one, which is the Mini QB, I believe, P.S. you'll have a presentation video on all of these pots down below in the description. I moved that video on my second channel. Anyway, so the Mini QB doesn't have a separate pot. What it has is a support for a pre-existing pot. And this pot also comes with a little insert that actually transforms the pot into a self-watering pot. So pretty much if you have an already potted plant and you put in the insert, you can transform that pot, which already contains a plant in it, into a self-watering pot. And if you think that things don't work out anymore or it's not summer anymore, then you can actually transform the same pot into a normal pot once again. And this feature makes this one my favorite Lechuza pot because of its versatility. So I thought this could be a great idea. And since I have the pot just hanging around in the greenhouse, why don't I do this and see how a setup of the sorts works? Now, will I buy 400 of these Lechuza pots? No, that would be bankruptcy. But for somebody who has 4 or 5 orchids and deals with a lot of dehydration issues and has some Lechuza pots in their stores or around, hey, why not? Maybe this could work. So I want to transform this pot into a self-watering pot. Currently, we don't have a wick, we don't have anything that screams self-watering except the way that I arrange the medium, which if you don't know, I always start with a layer of sphagnum moss on the bottom to wick whatever is on the bottom, and then I layer it inside together with the bark. So theoretically, all I need to do is insert this little wicking thing and try not to make a mess. There we have it. And then arrange my orchid in the pot. And hey presto, a self-watering container. I need to add the water still. Of course, I always make a mess. Alright, so let's see if my little wick stays wet. Yeah, there we go. It does have contact with the water. Inside, I do have quite a bit of water. I didn't fill it to its full capacity. You can see the indicator here is half, but for now, that is all I need. So my hope is that this little wick will transfer water from the reservoir to the pot. Now, will this be enough? Will my orchid sit moist for a week or 10 days while still being aerated? We shall see. Obviously, this will not necessarily be useful in all environments, particularly very cool, maybe even humid environments. This might be a no-no. But there are many environments which could benefit from some more moisture if you are using heating devices which dry out air a lot in winter, if you have warm climates. I don't know, maybe this is something you could consider. And the best thing about it is that if at some point you just get tired of it, or it just doesn't work out, or it's too wet, you just remove this thing from the orchid pot and transform it into a self-watering pot for whatever plant you want. So it's not wasted money or wasted material. How about that? So because I have another one just lying around in the greenhouse not being used, I will actually use it with another Phalaenopsis. I will go for the Gigantea. That orchid always pulls a little bit too much since it's not really established. It's a very new orchid, it doesn't have too many roots, and it just stays moist a little bit too much. And I'm always finding myself having to check on it. Even though I try to use less water than with the others, it still doesn't work out. It's a fine-tuning thing here. So I want to use the other Lechuza pot for this one. Since I don't want it to sit in water, the problem is I don't have the big holes on the bottom. And that's an issue, but I can resolve it super fast. So with these types of pots which have slits rather than holes, it's easy to just make another hole. For example, with this one in the middle with my soldering iron. If you're using a food container, again, you're already making drainage holes, just put a little bit of a bigger one somewhere in the center. You only need one, and hey presto, we should be fine. But with this one, either I will have to change the pot, which is going to be easy since it doesn't have way too many roots. Either I can go ahead, see what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. goodness, I just drained the water from this one like 5 minutes ago. It was watered at the same time with the other one actually. So what I will do with this one is actually change the pot, and I think the idea of not sitting it in water will be great. As a side note, this issue would have been resolved in time as the root system grew, so it's not something that I really need to do, but since I'm here and since I have the materials, I'm just gonna do it. Alright, so I repotted my orchid, used the same medium because it was brand new and just had to put a little bit more on the top, and I'm actually happy that I went back in because I found out while I was holding on to that water excessively. This orchid had a big root it arrived with, but the root didn't make it. So that velamen acted like a sponge. It was soaking wet and mushy, and it was just keeping moisture inside, but obviously it was degrading and decomposing and just not a fun situation overall. So I'm happy that I went and I removed that root. Now I only have good roots on this orchid. So let's see. I'm going to insert the wick in my pot and ta-da, self-watering pot. Yes, it's a little taller and it wiggles a little, but that's okay. This is an epiphytic plant. We need aeration around it. It's fine. The benefits are big. Now, since this orchid was already super wet, I'm not gonna put water in the reservoir. I'm just gonna let it be, let it dry out, and then I'm gonna water it. But yeah, there we go. So I will observe it and tell you how everything goes. You can absolutely DIY something like this if you want. Remember the DIY self-watering pots that I used to make with the leca, with the internal pot just sitting on the external pot? Well, the downside with those is that you don't really get much aeration. So the little ventilation holes that you put in your pots become suddenly useless. So there's a little downside, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work. But if you already have some lechuzas or you like the aesthetic of it, why not? I'm thinking this could help people with very busy lives, maybe people who travel a lot. So I'll let you know how that goes. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Hope you've enjoyed it. With that said, thank you again for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. You know the drill. Like or dislike this video below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, and just maintenance stuff and hanging around with me in the grow space. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!